Hey, Chris.
Hey Mickey, how's it going? There's two of you. That's weird. Leave it to Zoom. Can you hear me? Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry. So it's my workflow where I'm on Zoom the whole day, right?
Right?
So I've got my laptop. That's the Zoom laptop, so it doesn't crash.
Okay.
And I've got my work laptop. So every time I do a screen share, it's on this laptop and not on this laptop.
Okay. So you got
So,
a sophisticated setup there that I can't even imagine how that's put together.
dude, if you can see me right now, it's not sophisticated.
Well, I
um,
used to have like three laptops, one stacked on top of each other,
mhm.
because I did use one laptop for video and one laptop for this and one laptop for that. And then one day I decided, this is dumb. I'm just going to go buy a super high end gaming
That's good.
laptop,
That's great.
and it has solved all of my problems because, I started with a super thin Dell because I thought I was going to do a lot of traveling, and then of course, no one's doing any traveling, so I found this laptop, and it's just phenomenal. Not only can you play games, but it can crunch a mean spreadsheet too.
Well, I think I might be about to get my boss to splurge for a, a super duper laptop. We'll
You
see.
got to do it, man. You got to do it, man. You can never look back. Never look back.
How are you doing?
What's that?
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. The weather kind of sucks here, but what are you going to do? I mean, it is what it is. I don't know what the weather's like where you are, but it is raining. It is cold. It is wet. This is my least favorite California weather. Least favorite California time of year. So
Yeah,
I wish I was somewhere nice and warm and Bora Bora or someplace
you
nice
know
and warm.
that whole thing about grass is always greener,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's about 80. Oh, it's 80 now. It was
nice.
84. I don't know if it's nice, man. I love the seasons, and I can't get any seasons over here in Miami.
I want zero seasons, man. I want to go somewhere where there's like beautiful all year round. I don't know.
Right,
I don't know where
right,
that is.
right. No, don't know. Sorry. On the international space station. How's that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe there. Maybe there. It's like perfectly clean.
Well, thanks for the invite. Thanks for this.
Of
Much
course,
appreciated.
absolutely. So why don't
Yeah,
you tell me a little bit about yourself, your organization, and we'll go from there, man. Let's do it.
sure. So my name is Mickey Itchon, and I work for Signature Consultants. I built up the BI practice over like 6, 7 years, and then I was able to segue into innovation. So
Hmm.
I did innovation for the last 4 years, and or 3 years, 3.5. But since December, I'm back to being the active director of BI.
Oh, nice. Well, intelligence is always important.
Yes,
It's always important to be smart.
yeah. Well, the pandemic has brought a lot of changes, and what are what are we if not able to transition, right?
We have to be flexible. We can only be flexible.
So
It's the only thing we can
my
do nowadays.
yeah, my organization, just so you know, is hold on, sorry, I'm trying. Oh, there you go. My organization is Signature Consultants, and we're a small staffing company. I say small because I know of the large staffing companies. However, this is probably the best company that I ever worked for,
Hmm.
and I've been around the block for a long time. Best company I worked for. It's uh, we've been one of the best staffing firms to work for 9 years in a row. We're 15th largest IT staffing company, um, one of the 100 fastest growing, and we actually placed 125 as a training organization.
Nice.
It's
Congratulations.
and if I could if I could mind meld with you about how all these things transition, you would say, "What, really?" Because it is completely an organic way for growing. So it's pretty amazing. Um, but me as an individual, I'm really, I guess, upbringing, family, faith, whatever. I'm really passionate about using my time and talent to help make life happier
Mhm.
for 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 those I come in contact with, for my family, for my community. Um, uh, that's what gets me out of bed every day, right? It's pretty clear to me that there's not enough effort put in that area, so I'm going
But
there.
making people happy? Of course, nobody thinks about that. I think nobody thinks about that. They just think about making a buck. They need to
Yeah,
think about making people happy first, and then the
yeah,
money will follow. And that's one of the things that sort of drew me to Silicon Valley originally. I mean, it's not like that now. It used to be like that. It used to be like, we're going to make a dent in the universe. We're going to change the world. We're going to make people
right.
so incredibly happy. They're going to just like, they're going to be throwing money at us.
No
But
kidding. What
it's
happened, man? What, what,
VCs,
where did
man. I don't know. Money grubbing. I don't know.
where did all that idealism go?
I know it's gone. Maybe it moved to Austin. I don't know. Everybody seems to be moving to Austin. I don't know. Maybe that's the case.
Well, our our mayor in Miami is trying to draw folks from Austin and California, and
Yeah.
you know, um, good luck with that. God bless them.
Well, Miami's a cool place. I remember the last time I went there, I was actually speaking at a conference, SIME, I think it was
Sure.
called, and we were doing like was it like it was like a brain trust of CTOs. So I was part of a CTO. I was CTO at a company at the time, and we went to, it was the art district, and they had
Yep.
some event there, and it was really cool. And I get to meet a lot of really interesting people. Like, you remember Young-Mi Park, she escaped North
Oh
Korea,
yes. Sure.
and I got to meet her there, and really really cool people, really cool place. And
Mm.
I don't even know what it's like right now. That was a while back, but there's lots of cool stuff happening in Miami. I don't see why it couldn't be like a tech mecca too.
It. I'm thinking that it first became a draw for everything Latin America, right?
Mhm.
So you've got Sony, you've got Apple, Microsoft, and all those guys really heated up the market here for Latin America, drawing a
Mhm.
lot of talent. And now that we've got that, it seems like a really good transition to be a player. Um, there's a lot to be said about culturally diverse,
Yeah.
and it's okay. My nephew actually works for Google, and he does these um, workshops with founders of startups,
Yeah.
and they did one in Miami, and it was amazing that these people came from all over Brazil, Argentina, all over the place.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's the one thing. I mean, you think about COVID being such a negative thing, but it's actually been a positive thing in a lot of ways, is that people can now, live and work anywhere that they want. They don't necessarily need to gravitate to these hubs
True.
where the real estate is ridiculously expensive, and might not be as culturally diverse as you're mentioning. And of course, you can't really get good Cuban sandwiches around here. You have to go to Miami for that, right? It's the only place.
I need to find some for you, or at least maybe a recipe or two.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
no, that's one of the things that, I mean, I think, I forget who it was, but the guy who founded AOL, he wrote a book on this. He says, like, The Rise of the Rest, I think he called it, where Silicon Valley has always been, touted as the place to go, but slowly but surely all these other places are starting to really shine. And especially with this particular thing, it's basically the disruption is driving people out so that they can go and live wherever they want. And I think that's only good for innovation and technology and where things are going, because people get new
Right.
perspectives.
Well, that's the point, right? New
Yeah.
perspective, the injection of other people's outlook and views that really spur innovation, creativity, and whatnot. And you have to mix it up. I mean, it probably was really a mixed bed in Silicon Valley a while back, but over time, everybody says yes.
Oh yeah, it's totally homogenized now. It's
And
totally
before you know
homogenized.
it, oh
It's
no, no,
terrible.
this is the way we do it. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, this is the way we do it.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. That's
yeah,
why I'm
I'm
thinking
with you.
about moving, but I don't know. Maybe, who knows? Maybe. I have a friend of mine who lives up the coast from you, and he's like, "Come to Florida. It's great."
It is incredibly. Um, there's so much opportunity.
Well, there's a pretty good innovation ecosystem there, right? I mean, if I were a startup founder, I would love to move to Miami,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly. Um, there are some things though that about Miami that I would love to see more of. I.e., Miamians going out and finding the best, and bringing it back.
Mhm.
Sometimes, they get too creative, and they don't realize that there are people out there that have spent so much time in, for example, lean practice, right?
Mhm.
You can't get that here. You need to go out to find out what it really means, what it means to founders, what it means to startups, and then bring it back, and then morph it, make it
Yep.
your own. Same with music, same with food, same with everything.
Yeah. Well, I think it has to be that you have to take that, like you're saying, there's this sort of mashup of influences, right? You can't
Right.
just take a look, look at this monolithic thing and go, this is it. And in fact, the more people move around from place to place, I think the more of this diversity happens. I think, and it's
Correct.
you can't
Correct.
really innovate unless you've got this set of diversity. If you get a bunch of people thinking the same thing
Yeah.
in the same
Yeah.
room, you're going to come up with new ideas.
So I think that when I look at innovation, it's really a matter of, for me, it's a cycle of um, listening, communicating, learning, experimenting, and then mentoring, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I'm assuming that when you're innovating, you have a really fertile area to innovate, just like gardening, right?
Mhm.
What happens though is that people get too homogenous in an organization, and people start saying the same thing, but that might not be the issue at hand,
Yep.
right? You might have to either dig deeper, which means that maybe instead of talking to the vice president, you got to talk to the admin.
Mhm. You got
Maybe
to talk to
instead of,
everybody.
yeah, yeah, you gotta dig deep. Don't count on the leaders to provide uh, the context for why there's issues, and then and which is something that I faced in transitioning to my job as director of innovation. Um, and I think they allowed me to do it because they they thought I always go left. Like, okay, so my CEO, okay, here's what we're gonna do, this big project, blah 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 blah, and we're gonna go this way. Great. Yeah. Well, what are you doing? Well, see,
Yeah.
uh, stepping stones, listening, it's driving me to a different direction, and I think this direction might get us there faster, or might get us there more. We might come up with a more accurate rendition of the problem,
Mhm.
and therefore come up with a better solution, which is always the issue with innovation, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing too is that there's this conflict between people who just want to push forward and do new things,
Yep.
and what people actually want, right? Because you've got these, sometimes you have innovators who are like, oh, we're going to do this cool new thing, this cool new thing, this cool new thing, but then they don't really think about what the customer is looking for. So there's this divergence, right?
Can I show you a little quick chart of my
Yeah, of course,
innovation portfolio before and after COVID?
absolutely. Go for it.
It's a little nuts. 1 second. And I it just really hit me this morning when I was preparing. So here's my innovation 2019 into 2020.
Hmm.
Let me pause a little bit. By the way, this how I kind of map my interests, existing versus non-existent, and then
Mm-hmm.
fix, improve, dream. Right.
Right.
This was my portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy on the dream side down here,
Yeah.
and on the improve side over here with not a lot of fix, not a lot of dream for the existing. And part of
Yeah.
that was like the presence of other teams that were doing the same thing. So I didn't want to bother them. Like my the BI team at that time was doing a lot of fixing and all that. But here's what this
Oh
is
man.
2020 into 2021.
Just a
Now,
little different.
just a little bit. Um, but I tell you, the reason for that is really um, back to this thing about listening, communicating, learning, and experimenting and mentoring. Everybody was freaking out in their own way, and we had to listen, and we went from a how best you deliver a good consultant to the client versus broadening our client base, which was the issue in the pandemic. How do
Mm-hmm.
you broaden your client base when all of a sudden the jobs just kind of shrink, right? and
Yeah.
and so that's why this went to that easily.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is that um, I think my innovation allowed my CIO and myself to really um, jam better.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very straightforward guy. Sometimes I think he's very linear, which is not a problem for a CIO, because
Right.
you that's it's part of your role. But we used to clash a lot in the beginning, and but and I too, I was quite arrogant in the beginning when I started to think about innovation, and I wanted to push the topic of innovation and dreaming outside the box. but but I realized that, hey, we're not in a bubble. We're actually in an organization, living, breathing organization. And that whole thing about really focusing on people's happiness came to mind. That, hey, I should really be, if I spout this in my personal life, I should be bringing this into my work life,
Yeah.
right? And hence, my audience. Do you mind if I jump back and forth? Is that cool? No.
Jump away.
Oh,
Jump away.
okay. Sorry about this. Um,
Fine.
so this is my planning for wins. Wins for me became, after about 3-4 years in the company, I realized that for me to make an impact, I had to plan the wins. And this is how I planned it. Near term, within 1 quarter, within 2 quarters, within 3 to 6 quarters, and then the different audiences that I had to work with, whether it was the founder, the leadership, um, the key directors, the key managers, all the way to the admins group. You know, and I realized that, and sometimes, like, making the admins happy improved the functioning of a particular office or business unit,
Oh yeah. I can see that.
and minimize the anxieties all
Mhm.
around, because not only were they doing their jobs, but they were getting more creative. you
Yeah.
know so this wins planning really helped me a lot. And every time I planned my wins, I would have the conversation with my CIO, and he would say, but, well, I sit innovation sits right beside infrastructure and right beside BI, and the infrastructure, which has the biggest budget, right? They're linear, completely linear.
Mm-hmm.
Version 1 to version 2, version 3 to version 4, and all that.
Yeah.
So my boss is was having a difficulty of my hopscotching,
Mm.
and I would tell him that what it boils down to is that we need to create some sort of a different work cycle, you know, where I'm
I
not sure
love
that I
this
was.
graphic, by
Do
the
you like
way.
that?
I love it.
Like that? Did,
I love
I,
this graphic, by the way.
it's yours, man. It's yours. You can use it. I'll send it to you. This is one of the I try to post stuff on LinkedIn as much as I can, but sometimes I can't. And this is something I came up with, that this is my day, you know.
Mhm.
So I've been pushing this now to the different teams that I get involved in. Oh, the funny thing is that when I got into innovation, it was uh, innovation director and not director of innovation. I said, well, what's the difference? Oh, because you don't have any people um, under you. I said, oh,
You're
okay.
directing innovation. You're not directing innovators, right?
I'm cool with that. This is part of reality. This is part of life. But the whole point about my job. So as far as I'm concerned, joy is always at the center. And my day starts off with gratitude, trying to set a perspective, and trying to define what my job is. By the way, that allowed me to switch my portfolio right after COVID. Right, right after COVID hit. If you're not aware of asking yourself what my job is,
Yeah.
you're stuck back in the past, which
Yeah.
means your innovation probably will never hit a bullseye.
Yeah. No,
Right?
I love that you have what is my job here. And this is like a daily thing, really.
It's a
Because
it's a daily thing.
things change so quickly that what is my job? The answer to that question changes all the time. It changes
Yeah.
during the course of a day, right?
Is 100% my daily mantra.
Yeah.
Um, which at the end of the day, it's got to go back to gratitude.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I don't know about you, but I don't sleep well. If I don't come back to that circle, I don't sleep well.
For those of us who are, so those of you who are listening and not watching, you have to go to the YouTube channel to see this. But it's gratitude, perspective, what is my job, collaboration, and inspiration or inspire, and with joy in the center. So you start with gratitude every day, and then you go round the cycle. Is that right? And
Right?
then does this go? Do you do that? You do
Well,
this every day, and do you do it
every
over
day.
the course of the day, or do you do it at the beginning of the day, or?
Actually, I start with gratitude at the beginning of the day and define what my job is. And then yesterday I don't know about you, yesterday I had 11 Zoom meetings yesterday, right? And each meeting, yeah, well, thank you, COVID. Each each meeting, we play a different part in
Mhm.
each meeting. In each interaction with an individual or a team, we're playing a different part. So what my job is will change. And therefore my style of collaborating will change. I'm either quiet, I'm sometimes the note taker, I'm sometimes the what I call the silent professor. You're waiting for when your voice of reason is important, or there's too much silence and there's too much waterfall, and you need to introduce some disruption
Yep.
in the conversation because you know that people are not going to go anywhere, you know. And
Yep.
not only that, but at
That's
the end of this
exactly right.
meeting, I'm sorry.
That's exactly right. That's
Right.
exactly right. Some people think that they have to have the same roles every meeting, every time, every
Yep.
day. But
Yep.
your roles change constantly from interaction to interaction, depending on who's in the room.
Yeah. I think I took after my dad. My dad, God rest his soul, he's been gone now for a while. He when I was a when I was a high school when I was in high school, my dad took me to this one resort town in the Philippines where I grew up in Manila, up into the mountains, and he says, we gotta go. My company is sponsoring this guy. He said, well, which guy is this? His name is Michael Porter. I think his name is Michael Porter. Michael
Michael,
Porter, I think, was
I was just watching a video of his the other day. Go on.
from formerly from Disney.
Yeah.
Yep. And I said, well, what's the big deal about him? I was in high school. I didn't know, right? By the way, this is my dad.
Nice.
I wasn't. Yeah, I was in high school, and he says, "Well, this guy is telling us that instead of trying to bust through the wall to try to solve a problem, you want to know if you can go over the wall or around the wall. You need to be creative." Is what.
Mm.
And my dad was so enthused about it, and the guy was my dad was a CPA and a CFO. I didn't think a CPA and CFO was going to be this enthused, but yeah, he was. His side job, because in the Philippines, his side job was managing a basketball team. Because in the
Nice.
Philippines, all the basketball teams are are sponsored by private companies,
Hmm.
and he loved the guys. And I remember growing up on the bench right beside him, getting sprayed with sweat as guys were coming in and out. Yeah, and then he was in a um, amateur league, and then he says, we this is not good enough. A lot of the other countries are trying to bring in other players from other countries so that they can get better.
Hmm.
I think this is the one thing I remember. I'm sure that's not the only reason. So he and his buddies, and this picture on the lower right is when the president of the Philippines at that time, Marcos, signed into law the beginning of uh, the Philippine Basketball Association, which is a professional association.
Wow,
Because
fantastic.
of, and it was my dad and his buddies that put together that whole concept. On the lower left, I believe that's when they were in either the Munich games in the 60s or in Tokyo games
Hmm.
in the 60s. And that's mom up there. So he was my biggest mentor in terms of joy and how you get there. And so I think I just picked it up from him.
That's a great picture, by the way. That's a
Thank you.
fantastic picture.
Thank you.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Well, it's I get to be non conventional when I'm with you, Chris.
That's good. That's good.
How are we doing on time? Are we okay?
Oh, we're doing fine. Fine. Don't worry. We're doing great.
I'm not. I'm not. I'm not worried.
So tell me about some of the things that you learned this day. Like you've already taught us a lot just in that one slide. I love that slide. But like tell other like there's other corporate innovators out there who are struggling to innovate within their organizations. Impart some knowledge. Tell us what worked for you and what will work for them, in addition to what you've already done.
Right. So I did not start in innovation. Right. In fact,
Who does?
I'm. Yeah. Thank you. By education, I've got a bachelor's in industrial engineering, and but and then I came to the States in '79 to finish my master's in business administration in New York, and then from there I got whatever jobs I could get, which is not as uh, as diverse as if I were born and raised in the U.S. So I kind of needed to scrape through whatever barriers and try to get meaningful jobs. So I went through a whole bunch. I didn't realize that by going through a whole bunch that I would learn stuff.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. That helps
You
build
know,
character. I mean, it helps build character. It helps build problem solving skills. It builds a ton.
yeah. And I would say first of all, I try to mentor also young adults here in Miami. I'm part of I'm Catholic, so I'm part of the church, but I do reach out to young adult groups in different parishes, and I mentor them. I also participate in their faith formation. So, but the best thing I'm at, I think, is letting them expand their brain as to what else can they do, where can they go, that they're not limited based on the experiences that they have or their family has and all that. At the same time, I tell them, hey, this is not the only job you're going to have, right? This is
Yeah.
not the only company you're going to work for.
Yeah.
This is not the only girlfriend you're going to have. I'm just kidding. Well, actually, that's true. I, I remember telling my son that. I had to explain to him what I
Good
meant.
advice. Very good advice.
I was listening to this guy. He's an Appalachian writer, and he passed away. And he says, the only difference between youth and us old folks is the fact that youth do not have the experience of life changing and transitioning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hence, their expectations are a little different.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so what. So when I transitioned, I realized I needed to get my brain clear of all the muck of programming,
Mm-hmm.
business intelligence, SQL, Tableau, whatever. I had to get my brain out of that, and I was having problems. So I looked and I did some research, which I love research, especially for those of us who transition from manual research into online research. You realize there comes the gratitude again. I thank you for the online research. I don't have to go to the public library anymore. I don't have to go to University of Miami Library or whatever. And in that research, I found that hey, they said lean approach is really the best way to go right now, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, we're not even in agile. The company's not even in agile. Why should I worry about lean? And I saw this guy who's a lean practitioner, and I'll share with you his stuff after, and then it's up to you whether you want to post it or not. And then he was having a workshop in Austin. Speaking of Austin,
nice.
So after about 12 months of trying to be the innovator and not really going away anywhere, I was able to talk my boss into allowing me to go to Austin for this completely nonsensical workshop. I had nothing to do with our company.
You thought it had nothing to do with your company.
No, they thought.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, I was in a room with 8 founders who needed to understand the lean approach to doing their product and market development. Some of them were so small that their only capital was family capital, literally middle class family capital.
Right.
And some of them are huge because they already had first round, second round. They were all there. And this guy, first of all, I had never seen anybody do a 1-day seminar with 250 slides.
Whew.
But he did it, and actually made sense, but that's separate. I digress. It was a 2-day seminar. I stepped away from that with my brain all scrambled, right? Because I was with these young guys who were like, they could be my sons. And we were talking about stuff that, like, how do I put this into practice? So I approached this practitioner and I said, I understand where you're going with this, but what should I do with the information that you just gave me? And he looks at me and he says, well, tell me more, a little bit more. And this was over beer. He said, tell me a little bit more about your company, blah, blah, blah. And I did. I said, oh, so you're kind of like one of the founders. Well, I'm not because I'm an employee. No. You're one of the founders of the innovation business within your company. And not only are you one of the founders, but you have even less capital to start with than the other folks. So you really have to be super efficient with your capital, meaning your time, your talent, and of course the paycheck that they're giving you. How are you going to do that? You follow the lean approach. You iterate, You look at you try to define your MVP, and if you go back into the presentations, I said, oh, so this is after I got back from there. Um, this is what I came up with. You start with requests, then I have to go through an ideation stage, and then I interview the heck out of everybody, up
Hmm.
and down. Then I do research, then I do analysis, then I do a proof of concept, a pilot integration, and some of these 2-3 steps are actually iterations. But what I learned from this workshop was that forget the waterfall approach.
Yeah.
If you need to iterate within 1 week, you got to do it.
Yeah.
Don't wait until you think it's the best. And this guy had a lot of great examples. And that's how I did 22 projects in 4 years
Nice.
without a team.
Mhm. You're the leanest startup ever. It's like
But isn't
zero.
that, yeah, I think it's because we also do not have our what do you call that, capital, that where it's based on all the projects that you've done. The only capital I had was our BI environment that I stood up.
Right.
That's the only capital I had, right?
Yeah.
So you're going and you're trying to get these people who are very fixed in their ways to go through ideation, and they're saying basically, I already told you what I wanted.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's almost impossible, and especially when people are like, you try to draw them out of their day to day so that they can think about other things, and it's almost impossible to pull them out of that because they're just stuck in this cycle of what they're doing as opposed to thinking outside of what they're doing.
So these three,
Hmm.
ideation, interviews, and research, and the results of the research, they had to be epic,
Yeah.
but epic within a couple of weeks.
Hmm.
Okay, so trying to learn how to do that, trying to come up with your workflow in order to get epic within 2 to 3 weeks, to get back in front of the stakeholder or the sponsor and the sponsor real fast, and then to shock them with what you've learned.
Hmm.
So I had past capital with my BI. I created a workflow that worked because I love research anyway. And I love trying to put like these, like, some of these other charts, like, right. So you're trying to get a message in such a very, very pristine, clear, simple way. I love
Yeah.
doing that. And I love to be able to shock people because of that.
Hmm.
And once they get shocked, they start to listen.
Yeah.
Hence, after they start to listen, then the analysis leads, it's all stepping stone. The
Hmm.
analysis leads to a request for a proof of concept, and then with the proof of concept, then everybody's bought in,
Yeah.
you know. But even sometimes, Chris, of the 22 projects, there was a bunch of failures, right?
Oh, there's always failures, but you have to learn. You learn from those. You celebrate those.
Hence, within about 6 months, people started using the word that nobody used before, and that word is experiment. Nobody used it ever before because that word had a connotation of wasting money.
Right.
But
Exactly.
but because of that workflow and responding really fast and shocking them with the results, they started to realize that experimentation was the only way to go. And hence 22 or 23 projects in that amount of time, um, was like a light bulb that went ding.
Yeah.
Not that, not that, not that it was well. And I'm not. Um, I'm also not very flamboyant, so I tend to be a wallflower.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm the only. I'm one of the few Asians in the group.
Hmm.
Not saying that that's bad. I'm just saying, I don't, and I don't speak sports.
Well, I mean, you were able to get 22 projects going, even being an introvert.
Yep. And
So,
that's that.
and how did you do that? I mean, how would you pitch these things? Did you? I mean,
Oh, uh, that was kind of easy. Um, I've got a really great chiropractor, great guy, right? I, I bring so many people to him, including my family. And the first thing he does is find the pain points,
mm,
not the pain points that you know, the pain points that you don't know,
right.
that kind of identify where it's really coming from. So I developed, because of the the ideation, the interviews, I was able to spot the pain points that was not very apparent,
Mm,
and they didn't realize it. They thought, especially if you're a VP, your pain point is the important pain point.
yeah.
But when you get a bunch of managers together and you start talking about pain points, you realize that pain point, like tension headache from over here, is really
Yeah.
caused by down here. And anyway, sorry, I
Yeah.
digress. But the point is, you gotta be really good at identifying the pain points, and the only way to do that is communication, listening, talking, learning. And so you can't be afraid to talk to people, otherwise you're in the wrong business.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think a lot of people do that. They're just like, especially startup founders. They're like, okay, this is my idea. This is a great idea. I'm just going to move forward with it without actually talking to anybody or seeing if anybody's interested in it or it solves a problem. If it doesn't solve a problem, then people aren't going to care, right?
I,
So you have to get out there and talk to people. And the thing is, there's a lot of
right,
startups
Chris?
who are very introverted, right?
Yes,
They won't go out there and talk to people,
because they
and
think that they've got a great solution,
exactly,
even though they haven't defined the problem.
yeah. And it's funny because if you think about it, design thinking is that, like, design thinking. The whole concept of design thinking is get into your customers' heads and deeply understand what they
There you
need.
go.
You have
Yeah.
to ask questions to do that.
And this whole thing about experimentation, right? Experimentation. Okay, well, you're going to experiment, but then how do you know that experiment went good? Well, who's your stakeholder? Who are you talking to? Are you getting feedback? Are you doing polling and stuff like that? And then how do you? And this happened in that workshop. How do you pick who you're going to put your experiment in front of?
Right.
You got to put your experiment in front of the person or persons that are most honest and that are willing to tell you exactly what they think.
Exactly. Because there's a lot of people who are going to be like, oh, I'm going to be nice. I'm not going to tell, oh, this is great. This is great.
No, 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 no. Wrong. Right? Hey, how about we use this particular business unit as a proof of concept for the no, no, because they're yes, 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 and then when you go to production, they never
Yeah,
use it.
that's right.
No,
That's right.
sorry, sorry, sorry. I want that quiet person that is going to say no, don't have time for that.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah. You want somebody to push back.
Yeah,
You got to be active.
yeah. So going back to that whole circle, that of of the joy, the gratitude, uh, and then and then asking yourself what my job is, and then collaborating. That's that, that's literally the workflow for really successful innovation. I
Hmm.
believe.
Yeah.
I'm sure other people will will say, whatever, whatever that guy thinks. Who's that guy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let me ask you something. So, how do you convince people that happiness is the goal and not just lining your bank account?
I started this vlog or podcast with I love this company.
Mhm.
This company actually has happiness in its value system. So it was a shoo-in that I didn't have to explain that one of my key motivators is understanding people's pain and trying to innovate to address that pain.
Yeah.
So, and then in my personal life, it's not always easy. I've got a lot of friends and family members who say happiness is really about accumulation.
Mm.
I said I I just say when you're ready to give me some good examples, let me know, because I haven't found one.
Yeah.
Not one. So and at the end of the day, when I look at the young people that are coming up, um, whether they're in high school, in college, or in their first job or the second job. By the way, the average age in our company, we only have about 580, 590 internal employees, and we got a whole bunch of consultants. But internal average age is my guess it's probably about 30, 32.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of young folks. And I just realized that I haven't called the people I'm supposed to mentor. Man, this podcast is not good for me, man. Anyway, so
Don't worry.
so
Don't worry. We're almost done. We're doing good.
when I talk to them, understanding their anxiety, number one, is not easy. Number two, they don't necessarily want to talk about it. Um, but I think that's why one has to be genuine. You know, you can't use it as a tactic.
Mm.
That really doesn't work. It might get you one or two projects, but unless you're genuinely interested in helping, they'll see through it real quick. Um, this big company that we work with, one of our big line of business applications, uh, the somebody was brought in as director of innovation, and it was literally 2 months, and the guy was gone. I'm like, oh,
Wow.
what happened? Oh, I did meet the guy. Okay, not a problem. Being genuine, understanding what your job is, really wanting that job, even though your job changes with every Zoom meeting, or your job changes every day. It changes in the beginning of the quarter, at the end of the quarter. Before COVID, after COVID, your job constantly changes. But I think your motivation has got to stay on the path. Whatever that motivation is, you got to just keep with it. If it doesn't work for you, change it.
Yeah.
Change it. Change it.
Yeah, and you're totally in control of that. You're completely in control of it.
That's
And
the only thing you control.
the interesting thing that you said there, though, is like, I mean, your company is in line with your values, right? But there's plenty of people out there whose company is not in line with their values. So what should they do? Should they try to change their company to line up with their values? Should they try to change their values to line up their company? Or should they go and find a company that matches their values?
When a person is in an organization that isn't aligned to their values, then that tells me that it's a prime opportunity to experiment and experience and learn.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely, it's not going to be long term unless you like anxiety and neurosis, because that's what you're going to get, long term. I mean, really. Um, and by the way, it's like a virus, right? Because
Yeah.
then you pass it on to the whole family. I mean, on and on.
You
I
go home,
digress.
kick your cat. We
So
don't want that. We don't want that.
I have a nephew that was out. Um, I had a nephew that was a star player for lacrosse in high school.
Hmm.
He couldn't finish because um, nobody could pay his tuition. He got yanked out because, and other things, he couldn't go to school. He was out on the street, but he was kind of like, um, but his head was kind of messed up, right? And then he got back into college, and as a family, we helped him. And sure enough, this guy is so brilliant that
Mm.
he latched on to sales and marketing, and he taught himself 3 times the amount of understanding in in online sales and marketing that the university could have ever taught him. So he was ramping up really fast, so much so that he left the university and started a consulting job.
Nice.
But he realized the consulting job was wearing him down because it was taking so much effort, including billing and all that stuff. And he was in his 20s, actually 20.
Hmm.
We had a sit down lunch. And I said, "How are you doing?" And blah, blah, blah. I knew he was very excited, but at the same time, he was looking for a job and what kind of job should I get and all that. And I said, "Listen, whatever job comes your way, realize one thing: you're in a perfect place to experiment.
Hmm.
What are you going to experiment? You're going to experiment on your own values, mapping it against the company's values, on your own skill set, mapping it against the skill set that they expect you to have. You're gonna you're gonna experiment. Now, if I tweak my skill set this way, what does it do? If I work more, what does it do? If I work less, what does it do? If I improve my communication, what does that do? If I am less prideful and less brash, what does that do?
Hmm.
Experiment, learn from your experimentation. That's the only thing that you can assure yourself job to job that will continue to grow you. And I say we're human beings. If we're not open to experimentation in our own lives, we'll never get to the point of happiness
Yeah.
that we all should be going for. That's the ring.
Fantastic.
Joy.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that.
Thanks, man.
So tell me about the future. Where do you think we're going to be in 10 years?
Ah, ah. In 10 years, the only people that will be working in organizations are people who have accepted the fact that they need each other. The only people not working in organizations who are starting up their own organizations are people who have grabbed on to the fact that they can experiment and they can go further and apply their talent and time to being creative. There will always be organizations, startups, there will always be that. And I think that whoever learns the fastest will get to that point of happiness and joy much faster.
Hmm. Hmm.
Learning learning is now for me what I've seen. Learning is the biggest um, advantage that
Yeah.
one can bring to your job.
Yeah.
Learn, learn how you're doing. Learn what other people feel. Learn what other people need. Um, learn what kind of tools of the trade you need to grab onto, and more importantly, learn what makes you get up in the morning.
Yeah.
So learning is the key tool, and that learning will allow people to work within an organization and work as founders outside an organization and continue to be creative. I think that people are going to go beyond and not even worry about retirement. That's
Mm.
that's one thing, because they don't have to. If they can balance their life, not their work and their life. If they can balance their life, then you continue working, because working is not working is really living.
Yep.
You know, creating is living.
Mhm.
So I think that's another thing that's going to go away. I believe. Um, and then lastly, um, uh, I'm I'm expectant that there will be more and more and more people willing to mentor other people
Mm.
in the future. As far as jobs go, eh, jobs are jobs. You
No,
know,
I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right. That was
I mean,
fantastic.
Chris, who wants to talk about a job? Talk about your experience,
Exactly.
right?
Talk about your life. It's your
Yeah, your
life. It's
life.
not just work. You know, work and life, they're interchangeable now.
Yeah,
They're interchangeable.
and don't always assume that because Silicon Valley started with the best entrepreneurs and the best creative minds and all of that, that they're still that. You can tell that things change, that they go in cycles. You can
Yeah.
tell it. And by
Yeah.
the way, that's the adult speaking to the young one that has not experienced life's changes.
That's right. But you know what? Why don't they listen to us, man? Why don't they listen to us?
Oh, you're having that too? I'm gonna share one last thing. I'm gonna share one last thing. My boy loves video games, and he's on track to become a physician's assistant.
Nice.
Video games, physician's assistant. He doesn't like working in between.
Hmm.
One time, something happened and he needed some cash, right? And he's not good at saving. And so I said, hey, you know, I'll set you up with something like Robinhood. Yeah. I was like, okay, this month you're what the amount I'm gonna give you, I'm gonna put half in Robinhood. And the only way you're gonna get it is if you make money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now bombarded with so many market movements and this and that. I said, where did you get the ability to read all this stuff? He says, I don't know. Where do you get the ability to coalesce all this information? I don't know. I said, I know where. It's your video gaming.
Mm.
Your Call of Duty is allowing you to process tons of information at the same time in order for you to decide, I'm going to go here, shoot that person, and this and that, and this and that, and this and that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said, no, that's impossible. No, it's not. Your brain is being trained,
Yeah.
and now you're using it. And he's like, he's happy as a clam. You know, we need to mentor. We need to like pull things out of other people,
Yeah.
and by doing that, we learn ourselves. So it's just a great way to live, man.
Yeah. Well, I've
Great way
always
to live.
believed that video games do help you build problem solving skills. And problem solving skills, if you ask me, is like the number one skill that you need to have. If you have that, you can pretty much learn everything else after that. So,
True that, Chris.
man,
True
this
that.
is great. So I love talking with you. This is fantastic. Contact information, like you're just going to send it to me and I'll put it in the show notes, or is it
I'll send it to you.
you
Yeah,
want to talk?
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I'm in LinkedIn. I'll send it to you. But no worries.
Very cool. All right, man.
I'll
It's
send you
great
some
talking
of
with
my charts as well. All
you.
right.
Many,
Take
many
care,
times. Talk to you
Chris.
later.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.